Myles Murphy is the number 11 player on my big board and my second-ranked edge rusher in this draft class. He was a 5-star recruit and a top 10 player nationally when he came out of high school, and he immediately made a splash at Clemson where he was awarded freshman All-American honors. He is 6'5", which is 70th percentile for height, 268 pounds, which is 60th percentile for weight, and just over 21 years old. In 2022, he had 40 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks, 2 passes defensed, and 1 forced fumble. One of the things that Murphy does best is timing the snaps so well. He explodes out of his stance and he has the speed to threaten the edge, and then he has good bend around the edge that allows him to win with speed and agility. He also converts speed to power well. He's able to get off the ball quickly with a speed rush and then drive into the opponent's chest and push them back into the pocket. Additionally, he's also got a nice push-pull move where he'll make contact and then pull you off balance. He's also got a spin move to the inside that he uses with a lot of proficiency. He's a very strong player with elite athletic ability, and he has a lot of tools in his toolbox as a pass rusher. Now, as for his weaknesses, he has tiny hands, 8.5-inch hands, which is 0th percentile. It's the same size as Kenny Pickett's hands when everyone was making a big deal about that last year. But I would argue it matters more for a rusher, their grip strength, their ability to latch on to defenders or offensive players and dictate where they go. He's also got a bit of a false step at times that, even though he times the snap well, his first movement isn't necessarily exploding forward. And he struggles to finish. At times, he will be outmaneuvered by quarterbacks in the pocket, and so although he affects the play, he doesn't finish with as many sacks as you would like. I think Myles Murphy is a scheme-diverse player. You could take him in about any scheme, he can fit any defense, and you can put him on the edge, and you can trust him to win and to generate displacement and pressure. But somewhere along the way, you have to teach him to be a better finisher, to be a truly impactful player at the next level. Tyree Wilson is the number 12 player on my big board and my third-ranked edge rusher in this class. He was a 3-star prospect who transferred to Texas A&M or from Texas A&M to Texas Tech after 2 seasons, and he burst onto the scene in 2021 with 7 sacks and 13.5 tackles for loss. He is 6'6", which is 95th percentile, 271 pounds, and has 96th percentile arm length. He is an older prospect. He'll almost be 23 years old on draft night. In 2022, he had 61 tackles, 14 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, 50 pressures, which was tied for 16th in the NCAA, and a 16% pressure rate that was ranked 4th. He is very quick off the edge, especially with his first step. He's got a quick first step, and he wins with power at the point of attack. And then he sheds with inside counter moves, or he'll drive the offensive tackle back into the pocket. He's also a very good run defender who disrupts plays on the front side, and he runs them down off of the backside with his high-end athleticism. Tyree Wilson has rare size, and he has a very high floor as a run defender, even if he never develops as a pass rusher. But he hasn't really developed as a pass rusher. He's never put it all together, and he may lack a true position. I don't think that he has the bend to consistently threaten to win off of the edge, and yet his best pass rushing reps, they came on stunts and twists from reduced splits or from playing inside. And so I'm not exactly sure where you're going to deploy Wilson. He is an older guy for someone that you're drafting as a work in progress. And so if you draft Wilson, you're drafting someone who has high potential, and he has a high floor as a run defender. He's going to stick in the league for a long time. I'm just not certain he's ever going to be a double-digit sack guy in the NFL. And so if you're going to spend a top pick, you want that double-digit sacks. And so you need to see development there in his counter moves and in his ability to bend around the edge. Jackson SmithJigba is the number 13 player on my big board and my top-ranked wide receiver in this draft class. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, and he set the Big Ten receiving record in 2021 with 1,606 yards, outproducing both Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, who both went on to be first-round picks in last year's draft. He also had that incredible Rose Bowl performance where he had 15 catches for 347 yards and 3 touchdowns. Unfortunately, he only played 3 games in 2022 while sidelined with a hamstring injury. He is extremely young, just barely 21 years old. 6'1", 196 pounds, with a 6.57 3-cone time, which is 96th percentile, and a 3.93 shuttle, which is 97th percentile. Overall, he had an 8.29 relative athletic score. Jaxon Smith-Njigba is an outstanding route runner. He has incredible footwork, and he creates a lot of separation with precise cuts, great head fakes, shoulder fakes. He does a great job at separating out of the slot. He also has an extremely high football IQ. He's able to find the open spot in zone coverage. He makes the proper side adjustments. He breaks off routes well, and he has great hands. He's just the epitome of smooth in every aspect of his game. And his lateral agility, he's so good after the catch. He forced 19 missed tackles, which was 12th most, and he averaged 8.3 yards after the catch per reception in 2021. Now, he doesn't have top-end speed. He didn't run at the combine, but he ran a 4.48 at his pro day. And he was mostly used from the slot at Ohio State. 83% of his routes came from the slot. He hasn't been asked to beat press coverage much, although I do think he can do it, and there's instances on tape of him putting together a good release package. I do not think that Jaxon Smith-Njigba is restricted to playing in the slot at the next level. I think he did it to accommodate Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. I think he fits best as a slot receiver, but if you want to take him and stick him outside, I think he's still going to be a great wide receiver for your team. Bijan Robinson is the number 14 player on my big board and my number 1 running back in this class. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, the top-ranked running back in his class, and the 15th overall player. In 2022, he was the winner of the Doak Walker Award and a consensus All-American. He also finished his career at Texas 4th in career rushing yards. He is 5'11", 215 pounds, just over 21 years old, and ran a 4.48 40, which is 82nd percentile. Overall, he had a 9.83 relative athletic score. In 2022, he had 1,580 yards, which is 6.1 yards per carry, and 18 touchdowns. He also had 19 receptions for 314 yards and 2 touchdowns while hitting 100-plus yards in 9 of his final 10 games. He also led the country with 104 missed tackles forced, and his 39% forced missed tackle rate is tied for the best in the country since 2014. Robinson has elite balance and body control. He is rarely squared up and hit hard by defenders. He is slippery, he's patient behind the line of scrimmage, and he has great vision to hit the hole when it opens up. He also has top-end lateral agility, and he's a natural pass catcher out of the backfield. And if you don't want to send him out on a route, that's fine, because he's also a good pass protector. And so he adds 3-down value no matter how you view him in the passing game. You can keep him on the field. Now, as for his weaknesses, it's nitpicking to say a guy that's 82nd percentile in 40 time doesn't have top-end speed, but we're going to have to pick nits because he's a blue-chip player. He doesn't love to lower his shoulder in short yardage situations, but the biggest thing is he had back, elbow, shoulder, and neck injuries in college, so there could be some questions about durability. He also had 6 fumbles on 539 carries in college, and so if he can clean up the ball security aspect, and if he can stay healthy, Bijan Robinson's going to be an elite player throughout the duration of his rookie contract and should be considered a favorite to win Rookie of the Year. Broderick Jones is the number 15 player on my big board and my 3rd-ranked offensive lineman in this draft class. He was a 5-star prospect coming out of high school, the 2nd-ranked offensive tackle and 11th-ranked overall player in his class. He redshirted as a freshman and then started 4 games in 2021 before becoming a 15-game starter and a first-team all-conference player in 2022. He is 6'5", 311 pounds, ran a 4.97 40-yard dash, which is 93rd percentile, and overall has a 9.59 relative athletic score. Jones has really good balance at contact. That's one of the biggest traits that jumps off of his film. He also has great mirroring skills. He's able to mirror edge rushers and push them around the horn. He's really good at resetting his hands. Whenever he's displaced, he's able to reset his hands, get them inside, and knock defenders back. He has strong hands, and he has good length. He excels at latching onto edge rushers and just taking them out of a play. And he loves to demolish defenders in the running game. He is looking for pancakes every time he gets the opportunity. And I mentioned his 40 time, but he has top tier athleticism on the field too, not just running combine drills. He clocked 19 miles per hour on the GPS in 2022. Now, as for his weaknesses, he only has 19 starts at the collegiate level, and there is rawness in his technique. He only had 203 raw pass or true pass sets in college, which is a pass set without play action or an RPO. So there's some technique he needs to refine. He punches wildly sometimes at defensive ends, and he needs to get that under control. He's also a little slow out of his stance at times off the snap, and so he's been able to make up for it with his athleticism. At the next level, pass rushers get more athletic, and so he's going to need to streamline some things in his technique. But overall, I think he is a great player with a very high ceiling, and he can probably plug in and play right away for you at offensive tackle while he works on the technique part of his game. Nolan Smith is the number 16 player on my big board and my 4th ranked edge rusher in this draft class. He was a 5-star prospect coming out of high school, the top overall player in his class, and he was a 4-year contributor at Georgia. Unfortunately, he tore a pectoral muscle in 2022 that ended his season after 8 games. In those 8 games, he had 18 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, and 1 pass defensed. His highest sack total in his career came with 4.5 sacks in 2021. He is 6'2", 238 pounds, ran a 4.39 40, which is 99th percentile, while vertical jumping 41.5 inches for 98th percentile, and has a 9.24 relative athletic score. Nolan Smith's greatest strength is his explosiveness. He explodes off the line and threatens upfield. He has ridiculous bend and is able to dip under offensive tackles to get to the quarterback. Also, even though he's only 2nd percentile weight, he is a strong edge setter in the running game. He talked about how Georgia defensive linemen are tasked first with stopping the run. That's their primary responsibility, and you can see him play with that mentality. He is a very good tackler when ball carriers come his way, and he's also able to negate the read option with his athleticism because he can play both options. He can commit to the running back, and then he can bail back out to the quarterback if the quarterback keeps the ball. Now, as for Smith's weaknesses, he is undersized at the position, only 15th percentile height, 2nd percentile weight, and 17th percentile arm length. Now, that didn't stop him from being a plus run defender, but the NFL is a different beast entirely. He can also be stonewalled by athletic tackles when he doesn't have the ability to run around the horn. He doesn't have much in the way of counter moves if he can't bend around the edge or just push you backwards. And so there's some techniques, some tools that need to be developed for Nolan Smith, but I think he's a great fit as a 3-4 outside linebacker or as a wide 9 defensive end where he can get around the edge and also set the edge in the running game. Brian Bresee is the number 17 player on my big board and my 2nd ranked interior defensive lineman in this class. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, the number 1 player in his class, who had 35 sacks and 80 tackles for loss in high school, while also averaging a double-double in basketball. He was the ACC Defensive Freshman of the Year in 2020. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL in 2021 after only 4 games. And then in 2022, Bresee dealt with incredible tragedy and adversity again, as his younger sister passed away from cancer during the season. Bresee is 6'6", which is 94th percentile, 298 pounds, which is 30th percentile. He ran a 4.8 640, which is 93rd percentile, with 22 reps on the bench. He has 32.5-inch arms and a 9.6 relative athletic score. In 2022, he had 15 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, and 2 passes defensed. Bresee has an explosive first step, and he has great agility and speed. A lot of times Clemson would use him in twists to get his agility and his speed in isolation to win against offensive linemen. He brings a variety of pass rush moves to the table, and he utilizes all of them to win at the point of attack. He's also solid in the run game, and he can play from a lot of different alignments. I mean, he lined up as a zero technique on some light packages as a pass rusher for Clemson. Now, as for his weaknesses, he struggles if he's double teamed on the front side of runs, and he gets too upright at times, and he allows blockers into his chest, and it generates displacement. And due to a variety of circumstances, he never put it all together in college. There's no denying that he dealt with a lot of adversity. And so he's a difficult projection to the next level because the tools are there. It just seems like he didn't get a fair shake in college. And there are durability concerns with his ACL in 2021, a shoulder injury in 22. There's a lot of question marks about Bresee, but the physical tools are undeniable. And I think he fits best at the next level as a penetrating 3 technique in an even front scheme. Cam Smith is the number 18 player on my big board and my 4th ranked defensive back in this class. He was a 4-star prospect coming out of high school and became a 3-year contributor for South Carolina, who ended his career with 6 interceptions and 18 pass breakups. He is 6'1", 180 pounds, ran a 4.43 40, which is 72nd percentile, with a 1.49 10-yard split that is 89th percentile. He also had a 38-inch vertical, which is 75th percentile, a 96th percentile broad jump, and overall a 9.68 relative athletic score. In 2022, Smith had 27 tackles, 1 interception, and 5 pass breakups. Cam Smith is physical at the line of scrimmage, particularly in press coverage, and then he transitions fluidly into a trail technique on a receiver's inside hip. When he's in off coverage, he's got really good spatial awareness. He knows where his receiver is. He knows where the quarterback is looking at all times. He does a great job of keeping things in his peripheral vision. He played outside in 2021, but he moved between outside and the slot in 2022, taking 357 snaps at the boundary and 196 in the slot. So he has versatility in that way. He's also a ball hawk. 22 of 94 career targets were intercepted or broken up by Cam Smith. Finally, he's a very willing tackler who's not afraid to stick his nose in the fan, but unfortunately his tackling technique is bad. He often tries to cut the feet instead of wrapping up. He had a 16.3% missed tackle rate, and so that's something that teams would like to see improve at the next level. He also sometimes takes bad angles in the running game, and he can get grabby downfield, especially against double moves. I think Cam Smith is another diverse secondary piece. He could play in the slot. He could play out wide. I think there could even be some safety in his future. Regardless of how you want to use or what position you want him to play, I think there's things that Cam Smith can offer both in press coverage and in off coverage. And I think that makes him a truly scheme-diverse prospect in this draft. Deontay Banks is the number 19 player on my big board and my 5th ranked defensive back in this class. He started 8 games as a true freshman and then 3 games in a 2020 shortened season. And then he only played 2 games in 2021 due to a shoulder injury, but he put it all together in 2022 and had a breakout season where he recorded 38 tackles, 1 interception, and 8 pass breakups. He is 6 feet tall, 197 pounds, just over 22 years old, and he is hyper athletic. He ran a 4.35 40, which is 92nd percentile. His 42-inch vertical was 97th percentile. He had a 98th percentile broad jump, and overall he has a 10.0 relative athletic score, making him the most athletic corner to ever test. He has a physical play style. Like, Banks loves to get his hands on receivers at the line of scrimmage and disrupt their timing. He has elite athleticism to recover if somebody beats him off of his jams, and he's really strong at the catch point. He does a great job of making plays on the ball to break up passes. He can also click and close well on underneath routes from off coverage, and he is an outstanding tackler who has great tackling technique. Now, as for his weaknesses, he can be overly aggressive at times. He likes to go for a two-handed jam at the line of scrimmage, which can be boom or bust. You can knock a receiver entirely out of their release, Or if you whiff, they're by you and you're totally off balance. And so he's a little boomer bust there at times. He can be a little grabby, more so than he needs to be with his athleticism, and it's something that they'll try to coach out of him. He also uses his aggressiveness. He'll bite on double moves at times, and he struggles to play with his back to the ball. I think Banks translates to the next level best as a press man or as a press zone corner. You want him on the line, using his athleticism, using his physicality, and then recovering once guys are out of their initial break. I think he's a fantastic player projecting to the next level. Definitely excited about Deontay Banks. Brian Branch is the number 20 player on my big board and my 6th ranked defensive back in this class. He was a 4-star prospect coming out of high school where he was the number 3 safety in his class. He was a 2-year starter for Alabama and a second-team All-American in 2022. He is 6 feet tall, 190 pounds, which is only 3rd percentile weight for safety. He's 21 and a half years old, and he ran a 4.53 40, which is 42nd percentile, with a 1.58 10-yard split, which is 55th percentile. Overall, he had a 5.26 relative athletic score. In 2022, he notched 90 tackles, 14 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, 7 pass breakups, and 3 sacks. The name of the game with Brian Branch is versatility. He can line up in the box, where he played 21% of his snaps at Alabama. He can line up in the slot, where he took 76% of his snaps, or he can line up at deep safety, where he took a lesser amount of snaps, but he still took some. He does a really good job of anticipating route concepts and cutting off passing lanes. He has the athleticism to carry tight ends up the seam and man coverage. He's also a very good tackler. He had the lowest missed tackle rate among players with 90-plus tackles in 2022. And he's also really disruptive as a blitzer. So if you want to blitz him, if you want to put him in the box, there's a lot of different ways that you can utilize Brian Branch. However, he does struggle in man coverage against slot receivers. He's fine in zone, but he struggles to keep up with quicker slot receivers. And his smaller frame and his lack of elite speed does make him a little bit of a tweener. He's somewhat of a positionless player, and those guys do tend to fall down draft boards because if you build your system around a player that can be moved around, a move piece, you have to have a backup for that guy as well. I think Branch fits great as a versatile nickel/safety, especially box safety prospect for a team. I think he can do a lot of things for you as a rookie to get on the field. And that will do it for this video, breaking down the number 11 through 20 players on my big board. Stay tuned. Later this week I will be dropping my top 10 players, and then next week join us live for the Edge of Philly Sports draft show for both the first day of the draft on Thursday night and day 2, rounds 2 and 3 on Friday night. I hope to see you guys all there.